When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gane, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Manifest It Now. I'm here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gane.
And we're going to talk about hope versus trust today. Maybe not versus, but we're going to talk about hope and what that means and the difference and the same and everything around these two ideas.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
Yeah.
What else are you excited about, Cass?
I'm excited about the date I'm going on after we wrap up recording.
Yeah. That's fun. This is a day date then. Or like an afternoon date, I guess.
Yeah, afternoon date. One of my favorite restaurants is doing like a happy hour. It's a breakfast restaurant, but they're doing happy hour and on their like the amazing food that I love. And so it was just like a really fun reason to be like, that's what I want to do. I want to go on a date next week, and it fits in perfectly, their timing. And so either sit outside or go sit in a park, and it'll be amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Lisa and I went for a walk last week in the middle of the week. Like it was like a Wednesday afternoon. And I'm like, we were walking. I'm like, this is luxury. I'm like, just going for a walk in the sunshine in the middle of January.
Yes.
In the middle of the week, in the middle of a work day. And I'm like, this is the dream. Like, I love how often like we get to say that. I know you're the same, Cass. And I know a lot of my clients are the same, of just like, this is my dream life. It's happening.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Oh, what are you excited about besides living your dream life?
I was going to say that's what I'm excited about.
Oh,
This is all,
yay.
all the little things, the freedom, time together.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with the definition of hope? Because I know this plays into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. So I would, before we even say that, I'm going to ask you, what did you think the definition of hope was?
Well, I've never like looked it up or anything, but just off the top of my head, it means to like wish for something. To believe I don't even know if I put believe in there, but to think it might be possible, what you want might be possible.
Yeah. Amazing. And so I always had it as, I was probably like, if we'd done this, when Jenny brought this topic up, I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I would have hope, like for me was always meant like just wishing, but like not trusting. And that was always sort of my definition and what I held like to be true. And so I didn't like love it.
And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if we want to get into this yet, but yeah, hope is the opposite of trusting.
Yeah, right? And this is very interesting way that this came out. For some reason, I think this is important to share with our audience. But there's a fictional book series that I have outlined and characters and all of these things. And it takes place in a real town in Colorado. But I wanted to rename the town and kind of create it a little more fictionally. And so it was totally inspired for it to be Hope, Colorado. And like there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to name it Hope. Like, what does that mean? What is that creating about the town? And like just as an author, I started thinking about that. And then I looked it up and I'm like, oh, and I could see this whole scene of writing between characters about this different explanation. Because so if you really look it up, there's a couple. I even found one that I love too. So one, hope is an optimistic state of mind that is based on an expectation of positive outcomes.
See, that is so different for me. So I agree with the first part. It's like an optimistic state of mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the expectation of a good outcome. Expectation is like a whole different word than hope.
Right? Yeah.
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 To me, expectation is more, I know it's like I expect it. Like I expect this, actually, well, we're going to get into so many good things. But there's more of a knowing with expectation. With hope, it's more of like a guessing or a wishing.
Yeah. That's what I always thought it. You know, and there is like, oh, so it's like, yeah, when it's used as a noun, like a feeling of trust, a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen.
So interesting.
Yeah. But when it is a verb, it does have that wanting something to happen.
Do you think, though, that most people, when are using hope in that sense of expectation?
No. But I think
Me neither.
I think it's an important thing that is really cool about our language that can make sort of an immediate shift. Like, oh, if that's always been part of my vocabulary, but that actually means an expectation, it up-levels it. Like, oh, I've used that word a lot of times, maybe even before, you know, you were LOA savvy or something.
Yeah.
And, you know, you used it. And so all those times that used it sort of in a wishy way, you're like, oh, I was expecting that to happen. Like, it can be a fun way to just up-level your energy and know, like, oh, it actually means expectation. Like, when I say I have a hope of that, like, that's an expectation. Just kind of fun.
Yeah. We're actually redefining a meaning of a word, right? So we all know that everything in the world is neutral and we give it, we assign the meaning to it. So we're now taking the word hope and assigning this, or you can do whatever you want, but like assigning a meaning of more expectation than none.
Yes.
When I think of maybe when I was younger, it may have felt more, hope may have felt more like expectation to me. Like, oh, I hope that happens. And you're excited about it. Ooh, I hope I get to see grandma today. You know?
Yeah.
And then almost like as I got older, hope began to feel worse. I don't know why.
I get that, because I think that's where I used to have it too. You know, even there was a song that a friend of mine gave me like for Christmas, and she made this video about a relationship, and it's called Faith, Hope, and Love. And I was like, oh, like, I don't, you know, it's awesome. But still there was like that twinge of like faith, hope, and love. But I will tell you, my love has tattooed on her arm, faith, hope, and love.
That's awesome.
So, you know, if it's that, you know, and when I can look at it that lens of like that expectation, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, and just seeing some of those things even can change your definition. But I agree with you. Most people see it as a wish, which is interesting because I, right, that then I would start to put up resistance even to that word if someone used it.
Yeah.
In the past, like obviously definitely made some big shifts around that, but and I think that's where this topic might come in, like hope versus trust, right?
Mm-hmm. I want to say one more thing about this. See if this resonates with you, Cass, is if that is a experience for most people where they start off hoping more and that hope feels good when they're younger and then it maybe doesn't as they get older, is we're really, when we're younger, most of the time we're taught to believe in our dreams. Like we are taught that when you wish something or when you dream something that it can become true. And so hoping for it is a positive thing, being optimistic, expecting it. And then as we grow and grow and grow, and obviously we're not totally conscious our whole life. And so, you know, we're having experiences where we begin to start telling stories of like, oh, that didn't happen. I shouldn't have hoped for that, or that didn't turn out the way I thought it would. So it means it was wrong. And starting to, you know, make up all these stories about our life and maybe that is what starts to warp the definition or our experience of hope a little bit.
Absolutely. Because if I put this in a like, I think that's what happens. And if I put it sort of in a bigger LOA context, when we're younger, we're just asking, right?
Yeah.
We're dreaming. We're in that energy that you and I will talk about what's amazing and what's fun and what feels good. And as we get older, I think partly we get trained. I think partly it's probably nature, but we start to look for the outcomes.
Yes.
And
so,
measure
success on that versus just feeling and dreaming and staying in that playful state of mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And staying in that place, if we go back and we kind of look at it as an expectation, we say, well, it didn't happen, right? Versus holding that expectation of that dream open and being like, well, just because it's not here yet doesn't mean it's not coming.
Yeah. When did we, if we could just change one thing,
Yeah.
Just because it's not here yet doesn't mean it's not coming. It's coming.
It is coming. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming. Okay, where do you want to go next with this?
Do you want to tie it into your original, like, do we want to come back to the hope versus trust and talk a little bit more about that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to bring up a story. Actually, it's one of my client's daughters who is having a driving test, and she's like, not feeling totally confident about it. And she's kind of like, I really hope I hope I'm going to pass. I hope I'm going to pass. And, my client can kind of hear the uncertainty and is like, okay, but can we get into more, get into more confidence and, trying to guide her daughter in this way. But one of the things that came up was like the feeling of people being scared to hope because it might not happen, right? Or because there's that, what if it doesn't happen, right? So should I hope and then be disappointed, or is it better not to hope, kind of thing?
Yeah. What's your answer?
Yeah. Well, I talked a lot, and without the first definition that we talk, when I originally think of hope, like, it is a little bit full of lack to me. So when you're hoping, you're not in the knowing that you can have anything you want. In fact, you're in the opposite of that. You're hoping it's going to be true. You're not tuned into the fact that it is a vibrational reality. And so that's the way I talked about it. And that's basically how we got to trust, right? Trust and hope are so much different. And sometimes I think if we feel like we have to hope on something, we're actually going too specific too soon. So if we take our focus to something that we know and we get into the energy of knowing or being, well, like so let's just use this example. So the daughter could be focused on how she was being I'm a good learner. I'm a smart in my school. Like, I'm being smart. I'm being studious. I'm being fun and responsible, and all the ways that she was centered and grounded in what she did trust, and go more general, not just driving, can I pass this test? She'd be able to tune into an energy that is more solid, more aligned than the specifics of the thing she wanted. So she could trust she could trust that feeling. Like, if and this is the same with all of us and what we're wanting, like, if we go too specific too soon on what we are wanting, we go into doubt. And that's, I think, the hope is trying to combat that doubt when you don't need to do that. It's not your most powerful place of manifesting.
Well, and I also think when I think too specific, often I think what comes to my mind, people are trying to control the universe. So when you're trying to get too specific about the details, it's just, always ironic because I just did a workshop and we're very specific, but we're specific about the generalities and how it feels. Like, when you get specific about...
that's so funny. I do that all the time too. I'm like, be generally specific, please.
Yeah. When it's like the specific that you decide, like, this has to happen in order for this to happen, is when, we are getting too deep. And that's when and I think the doubt actually a lot of times is because that doesn't resonate. because we're going against maybe what we actually want, because we're trying to decide this thing belongs in this, but I really want this feeling or this life over here.
Say more on that.
So very often it's that hope, like, oh, I hope. This comes up a lot. You know, a good example is like with my actor clients, like, oh, like I really want to get this part. Like, how can I set the intention? How can I, like, I hope I get it. Like, but what happens if you don't, right? Like, what if this part is not the part that is lined up for your path? What if this is the part that actually keeps you from getting that next part, which is the breakout role? Or this other thing that is like shows off who you can be. And so, you know, very often I think, yeah, like we put this hope and this energy, but that's in the details we're trying to control versus staying in the place. And so I actually think sometimes that doubt is, it's us feeling that it's not aligned. Oh, I'm afraid it's not going to happen. Right. But it comes out like that. Like, I'm afraid it's not going to happen. I have to hope for this. But what we're feeling in that doubt is actually that it's not aligned.
Yes. I love that. I definitely believe that if they're hoping, it means there's more room for alignment. So it means you're not totally aligned if you're in hope. So there's room to go. And as anyone listening to this podcast, or you can now, I don't want to give hope a bat. Like, I don't want to be like, okay, I can never hope again, because hope is way, much more powerful than despair, right? Or not believing. It's great to hope, but when you're in hope, you won't be able to stay there for long without continuing to find more alignment for yourself. Because when you make the alignment your priority, or stepping into the woman you want to be, your future self, then you are aligning with what you want, and it naturally moves from hope into beingness, or from hope into trust. And so it's I don't know, hope feels so like trying to make it happen.
Well, and I think it's not actually the word, and this is one of my sort of things that I like to bring awareness to for people, is that very often, so if we did say hope, we aren't saying don't use the word hope, right? But there's like, it's the energy of that where it usually gets, there's a list in certain personal development trainings like, oh, you should never say this. And I call BS, because it's the energy behind them, not the word, right? It's not whether you use the word hope. What we're saying is tune into that energy. Are you sort of like grasping and really like, what we would use as hope, like really like, ooh, I don't think it's going to happen, but I'd really, really, really want it to happen, sort of an energy. And how do I make it happen? Are you holding on to that? Or are you sort of stepping in and being in this other, like, this is what I want and this is working out, which ties for me a little bit different. I might have had a little bit different with, like, if that were my daughter, I would actually say, like, what happens if you don't pass? Like, for me, it'd get clear, like,
life is over.
And I would go down that path because I'd want that to become okay, so that we're not pushing against it, right? Because again, sometimes I think that doubt can also mean pushing against. And so I want to clear the deck of, like, what am I pushing against? And if I'm pushing against regret, or I'm pushing against disappointment, I'm pushing against any of those things, I want to find the thing that I can move toward.
Yeah, that is so good. I love it. I wanted to tie in. Oh yeah. So as a listener, asking yourself, okay, well, what does hope mean to me? And like, what is the energy of hope for me? And then I do feel, then you just pay attention as you're going, and as you're paying attention to your feelings. And because if hope feels good to you in a moment, then stay there and love it and be there and say, yes, I feel hopeful about this, and hope, it feels so good to hope right now about this. That's all you need to know. Does hoping feel good right now, or does hoping feel bad? And that's how you know And this is the thing. If hoping feels bad, you are being called to level up. There's more there for you. And so that's a good sign. Celebrate that too. Okay, great. I'm actually ready to go beyond hope. And what does that look like? Feel like,
Yes.
be like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it could be letting, like when you go beyond hope, it doesn't, for me, I don't think it necessarily becomes trust. It could be letting go. It could be trusting more.
Yeah.
It could be like being okay with where you are. There are a lot of things that it could be that are leveling up.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that. Is that trust isn't like the next step in hope. You can have trust at anywhere along your path at any time with anything. Mm-hmm. Trust is always there. You can always tune into that. And I think that's one of the things, like, it is more powerful than hope. We started saying in our group, and tell me if you agree, but we started saying, Casper, like, hope is out, trust is in.
For me, it doesn't matter like whether I agree. It feels good. You can feel the energy of that.
Yeah.
So for that day, for however long that hope is out, trusted is in feels better, like that reminder, that lightness of like the visual of like out, in, like trust out or hope out, trust in. As long as that feels good, that's what is where to go. That's where to stay.
Yeah.
You know? And if at some point it's like, you know, I don't like this, then it shifts up or it changes or something happens if it doesn't feel good anymore. But as long as that feels right, because it feels light and fun to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always changing, always fluid, and it always depends on, you know, where you're at in that moment.
Absolutely.
Beauty of LOA. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is one of the points I want to bring is that, you know, I think we've made it very well is the definition of the, like, there is no fine rule. You can't do it this way. You can't do it that way. Where people want to have sort of this set of, you know, oh, don't say this, say this, do this. You know what I mean? Say, like, I remember one time someone was in a self-development class and I said, they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I have to go to XYZ. I didn't have resistance. I wasn't like, I wasn't stressed. I wasn't anything. It's like, oh, don't say have to, you get to. And I'm like, no. Like, this is what I have to do today. And I'm good with that. I feel good about that. I love that I have to get these things done for my business today.
Oh my gosh, you are so reminding me of my brother right now. So at Christmas, he said something like, I did exactly what that person did. We were in the car driving and he said something like, oh yeah, it's hard to do that. And I'm like, Adam, it doesn't have to be hard. And he's like, Jen, I don't feel bad about the word hard. He's like, that's not a negative. I don't like associate negativity to that. I'm like, okay, but just pay attention.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it's good to know too, right? Like we all have our own meanings for words, and it's just pay attention, bring an awareness to. Sometimes it's good to just check in. Oh, do I think this is hard? Is that a negative thing for me? Do I think I have to, or do I like to say get to better? And you get to decide all of these things for yourself. You have so much choice. And it kind of ties to what we were talking about last week. Like, you know, who do you listen to? Like, you listen to you, and you're going to hear a million things from other people. And every time you get to say, does that resonate with me? Is that true for me? That's always, always your guidance.
Yes, I love it. And I want to give like a little bonus. If you find yourself like, you know, where somebody says hard, you could be like, oh, like you could ask like, oh, do you think that's like, is that good for you? Does hard feel good, or does it feel bad?
Yeah.
Because then you even get to lessen a little bit, maybe your own, what you feel about it. Maybe it strengthens it and you're like, oh, yep, nope, I don't do hard. Or maybe you're like, oh, what if that, you know, wasn't hard or whatever.
Yeah. Or what if hard felt good? Like there's times when I'm not a person that really uses hard a lot, but effort. Like effort feels good. You know, sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I put a lot of effort into that, or that the energy I put into that workout felt so good, or into that course felt so good, you know, but just acknowledging what those words mean for you.
Yeah. It's so important, right? Because I definitely have those where there's things I would never say. Like speaking of hard, like I don't, you know, I'm not I would never use the term I can do hard things.
Yeah, I don't do it either.
But like to some people that really feels amazing. And it's what feels good. It's what reminds you who you are and what you're creating and what you want to create more of.
Yeah.
And
I don't can't either. It's the silliest thing.
Yeah. Which are all like, they're good to know for you. And they're also good to know, like, they don't have to be for anyone else. They get to be your guidance, your system, and you get to define it.
Yeah. That's awesome. How do you want to, or is there anything else you want to wrap up our hope versus trust before we start diving into something completely different?
I know, right? I think it's just a call to just check out what are the words that you say. You know, for me, my clients will resonate with what are the stories that you tell every day? And are those still the stories you want to be true tomorrow? Like, are those the words? Is that the energy, right? Because it's not even the words. It's what is the energy behind when I say hope? Like, do I love that energy? Or do I want to shift it up? Is it time to find a new word and really bring it back to you and what you want and what you want to create?
I love it. It's perfect. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye. I love helping people manifest money because when you're learning to use the law of attraction, money is such a great tool. It gives such instant feedback. There's so many opportunities to see how the energy is flowing through you and where you might be getting tripped up or not allowing it to come in. So if you've had trouble manifesting in the past, you might want to use money as a way to learn how to use the law of attraction. Now, I have helped thousands of people manifest millions of dollars using my system Manifest 10K. And now I would love to invite you to join me complimentary and pay based on your success. You heard me right. You can join, get access to my very successful program, the Enchanted Circle, and most of all, my coaching for when you get stuck. And then you can pay me 10% of what you manifest after you're successful. If this sounds good to you, go to payafteryoumanifest.com to apply. That's payafteryoumanifest.com.
Go be awesome! Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.